So my name is Sophia Manning. I'm an undergraduate student at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and for 11 months between the ages of 16 and 17, I was in the troubled teen industry. Has anyone heard of that before today? Okay. So what I'm going to present right now is more autoethnographic. It's not research. What I'm hoping to do is kind of contextualize some of what Rachel shared and maybe just give people an idea of what this actually looks like in practice. So, like Rachel said, it's a network of concrete care facilities designed for teenagers with a variety of behavioral issues. They are private and for-profit, and because placement is private, there's no criteria that must be met to warrant an out-of-home placement. It's at the discretion of the parents or guardians. And because it's private, there's no federal oversight or regulation. So I'm going to share my trajectory really quick before I get further into it. So I got transported. That's how a lot of teenagers get sent to treatment. They get removed from the home by hired therapeutic practitioners that will remove them. So that happened to me, and then I fought my transporters. It was very scary. I had no idea what was happening to me. So I fought them. They put an M1 hold on me. I spent 72 hours in a psych ward before they ended up bringing me to a wilderness program. I attended Wingate Wilderness Therapy in Kanab, Utah. I got kicked out after I ran away. And then I spent 4 days at they call it a safe house. It was a transporter's headquarters, so a house that one of those programs were operating out of. They pretty much just stuck me in the basement, and I hung out for 4 days. And then after that, I spent 6 weeks at Viewpoint Psychiatric Evaluation Center, and then following that, 9 months at Big Sky Academy, which is a residential treatment center in Montana. So first, people call it getting legally kidnapped. People who went through treatment call it getting gooned. But yeah, transporters are hired by the facilities to move residents. So that's what happened to me. A lot of times they'll come in the middle of the night because parents hire these transporters. They don't tell their teenagers. And then if you come in the middle of the night, you're less likely to meet resistance if that teenager is super disoriented. So that is not what happened to me. My transporter showed up mid-afternoon. I was just home at my parents' house, and then all of a sudden there were 3 strangers in my room. It was 2 men and a woman, and one of the men were like, "We're taking you to Utah." And I was like, I have no idea what you were talking about. So I want to say that I know life is a circle because today is the 5-year anniversary of when I got gooned. November 15th, 2019 was also a Friday. So I recently pulled a police report. I fought my transporters and they called the cops. A couple of my friends showed up. As I was getting restrained, they called the cops, and then the cops showed up. Obviously, again, I didn't know what was happening to me. I fought my transporters, they called the cops, I fought them too, I had no idea what was going on. I pulled a couple highlights from the report. So these were, like I said, therapeutic practitioners, if you want to say, and they were supposed to take me to Utah. I think it's very scary for them to be like, we do have teams that can transport restrained people, but we're not one of them. So that is kind of bleak. They definitely would have just driven me out to Utah restrained if they could have. But what ended up happening is they called the police. The police came and restrained me. Again, I didn't really know what was happening, and I was also like, of course the police just sided with the transporters and my parents because I was a juvenile, so I had no rights. But I mean, I wasn't under arrest. I didn't know what was happening to me. There was no due process. But yeah, they restrained me, put me on the floor, cuffed me, all of that good stuff. And then after that, they took me to the hospital in my hometown, and then they put the M1 on me, and I went to a psych ward. I also pulled this, yelling, screaming, and overall irrational behavior, but how irrational is that? I mean, what would you do? I didn't know what was happening, I was scared. So then after that, I went to the psych ward for 3 days. I accepted my fate, which turned out to be a wilderness program in Utah. So wilderness programs are usually the first program that teens are sent to. Their duration is typically 8 to 16 weeks. And they typically act as a therapeutic primer for the next program because oftentimes you're not going to go just to wilderness, you're going to go somewhere else after that. So the program I went to was called Wingate. I apologize for the picture quality, I could not find anything better online. But the program essentially was, for 5 days a week, you would hike 6 miles a day. There would be some, you see people are circled up like this. You would do some group therapy work, like check-ins in the mornings and evenings. but mostly it's just like a very survivalistic. You're supposed to have like incredibly limited amenities, so you don't have a shower, you don't even have a tent. You can see that's a tarp. They would string up a tarp and we would all sleep under it in a line. Yeah, I was there for 5 days. I was like, I cannot do this, I cannot be here. So then I ran away from that. There was a full search and rescue operation. I've been pulling the records from this experience for myself recently, and it's so strange to think that like, I walked about 20 miles in 20 hours, and this is all that happened on paper. It's 4 lines of, we found this girl, she ran away. So after that, I went to the safe house for 4 days. They kicked me out because they were like, liability to have you here if you were to do this again. Thank God. Yeah, it was pretty bad. So I walked for like 20 miles, and then I ended up getting found because a local like rancher in the area saw me and were like, this girl is not supposed to be here. So they called the cavalry in. I end up, they search, some guy grabs me, zip ties me, pulls me to the road. I'm cuffed again, cuffed at the wrists, ankles, ring restraint, whole deal again. They take me to the police department and I sit in an interrogation room for a couple hours while they figure out what to do with me. Yeah, and then I ultimately, went to the safe house for 4 days. And then after that, I went to Viewpoint Psychiatric Evaluation Center in Ogden, Utah, right outside of Salt Lake. I was there for 6 weeks. So the program was like a full psychiatric evaluation center. So pretty much just like this. You do the evaluation, psych assessment, they would begin to develop like a treatment plan, and then they would help you find a program to transition to. So this was like probably my rock bottom. I ended up at Viewpoint like less than 3 weeks after I got goomed. So like my life like ended, and all of a sudden it was this, So it was very depressing. There was also some pretty questionable practices. So it was a level system. Every day we get a grade. This is one of my friends, Claire. We were very, very close. I actually had the privilege of visiting her this year for the first time since 2020. I saw her. But this is what our level sheets would look like daily. They'd give you some feedback about whether or not you're participating. Then they also had some stuff like, if you were not supposed to talk to someone, like you had negative communication, they put you on comm block, that's CB, they would like write your name. You might also have physical boundaries with someone, so if you were on comm block, you probably also would have to be 6 feet from someone. And then they also, probably their most questionable practice was called out of community. So if you were misbehaving or not being like a positive influence or whatever, they would put you out of community, which just meant that you were like locked in your room for the day. So yeah, like those isolating tactics as a way to kind of force you to try to conform or participate in programming. Especially like odd, like if you didn't get up in the morning, the ride time was at like 8 or something, and then if you weren't out of your bed by 8:15, they would keep you in your room for the day, which seems counterintuitive, but that's what we did. So yeah, I was there for 6 weeks. I did not participate in programming at all. I was pretty aggressively uncooperative. I broke TV there, broke some other stuff. I was like, I don't consent to be here. You guys cannot work on me. Like, I'm not gonna participate. And then after that, I got sent to a residential treatment center. I'm gonna review these, the totalistic characteristics. I had never heard of these until this spring. Marcus Chatfield is a researcher of the troubled teen industry. He developed these, and reading this was so crazy because this is exactly what I lived through. I did not have the language to like explain what happened to me, and to like see this put down was like, yes, very, very important for me. So particularly the program that I went to, I would say the biggest two are peer policing and confessions and confrontations and group therapy. So the program I was at was called Big Sky Academy. It was in Clinton, Montana. On the right there, that's from Google Earth. You can see a facility. At the bottom there, those were our little dorms. We lived in those cottages. This is, I pulled this off of it's been listed a couple times on like Zillow, Trulia, different things. That's one of our rooms. That's like, you can see like the admin area, that like, kind of square part in the center, just so you can get a size of like the scale and stuff. So that's where I lived for 9 months. And it's difficult telling people about this experience because I run through, like, I got goomed, I went to wilderness, got kicked out, 6 weeks at a psych ward, and then all of a sudden I'm left, and then like 9 months here. 9 months is a long time to like live in this program. But our model was called positive peer culture, so it was a group therapy model where you live with your group. So at any given time, there'd be between 8 and 11 of us, and you would, 24/7 you would be a group. The only time you were not in group was 10-minute shower at the end of the night, and once a week you would have a family therapy session, like over the phone. And even that you didn't go to alone, someone still had to come with you in order to like hold you accountable. Yeah, so we did group therapy literally 24/7. We had these 12 problem labels. At any given time, you could like, you would be like, okay guys, let's get in group. And everyone would circle up and you would use one of these labels to get help for your problem. You'd be like, all right everyone, this is for my easily angered problem. Something just happened, it really pissed me off. Can you guys help me work through it? And then you would all, you know, like, do group therapy. But you could also call it for other people. So you could be like, okay, so this is for your lying problem, like you lied, and let's all circle up and talk about it. So some mixed feelings. First off, there's definitely some value in group therapy, I think generally. I mean, you look at like DBT groups, like there's some value, but the prolonged interpersonal interactions, the like degree to which this is attack therapy, where you're, you know, you are being encouraged and forced by the program to really police each other, like go in on each other, pick each other apart. It was, yeah, I don't really know how to communicate what it was like to live in this for 9 months. When I tell you we probably did like 12 groups a day, like minimum, like honestly, like non-stop. So yeah, that was a pretty crazy thing to live through. Yeah. So some conclusions. This is all very ethically questionable. Like I hope me like sharing some of this has made it clear some of those ways in which like in a concrete sense it is. We definitely need to be working to regulate these facilities better. And it's pretty terrible that the only options really for residential treatment like this are so abusive. Because I will say that as a teenager, I really needed help. I think that a lot of teenagers end up in these programs because of lazy parenting, because of the industry pathologizing pretty average teenage behavior to get parents to send their children to these because it is for profit. But I don't feel that way about myself. I really did need help. And it's complicated because I do feel like I got help out of this. There was value in this experience, and that's difficult to reconcile looking at, you know, where I was as a teenager, where I am now, and the fact that I lived through this thing which was so abusive, and I somehow still walked away with some value. So there is a need that there has to be better options for teenagers that need treatment. Also, the iatrogenic effect of this is very real. I think specifically the drug use. I had a drug problem before I went to treatment, but a lot of teenagers don't, and then they leave treatment, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh well, everyone does drugs. It's super normal to do drugs. Everyone has been war storying, glorifying it, and they're like, okay, so I'm gonna go do drugs now. Yeah, and then also, like, I think this is a form of human trafficking. Like, the bodily movement of, like, it's expensive. The program I was at in Montana, I think it was $7,000 or $8,000 a month. Wilderness is even more expensive. Like, I don't know what the day-by-day cost of that is, but it's pretty excessive. I included this. This is a text from one of my friends. We were talking about just treatment, and I was like, it's human trafficking, and you know, this is what she had to say about it. And I think this summarizes the way of how banally evil this is. Like, people literally don't know this is happening, and just casually throughout the entire process of this industry, people are being abused. Yeah, so right now, advocates have pushed the Stop Institutional Child Abuse Act into Congress. It hasn't, I think it's still waiting in the Senate, passed either house. But it would give some oversight to these programs, establish a work group with different professionals who would then help to overview and provide recommendations for these programs, for policy, for all that. And then, yeah, obviously, like I said, this wasn't really researched. I was just kind of showing my perspective. It is very under-researched, although there is, some stuff. Right now, so I said I'm an undergraduate student, so I'm still kind of getting my feet wet in academia. But I am working on a research project on the overrepresentation of adoptees in the troubled teen industry. 2% of the general population is adopted compared to 25 to 30% of the residents of these facilities, which is a pretty crazy disparity.